welcome to Sunday School Bonanza.
Thank you, Danielle. Yes, everyone, welcome to Sunday School Bonanza. It's wonderful to be here with all of you. My name is Jeff Openshaw. We're here to bring you a great rundown of a gospel doctrine lesson and help you get better prepared for this glorious Sabbath day that hopefully you can enjoy in one way or another. And I am joined this week, of course, by none other than my indomitable wife, Danielle Openshaw, is here with us in the house.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Danielle, we wanted to do this one. This one's going to be it's going to be a good lesson this week. It's lesson 10, Birthright Blessings, Marriage in the Covenant.
And we're married, so we can do this.
That's why we're talking about it. We are experts. Mm-hmm. It's like, should I do this with, like Dustin or Bill?
You're not married to them.
I'm not married to them.
No.
And I think female perspectives are good. And I felt that Danielle would be so wonderfully suited for this lesson.
Well, thank you.
And she has a lot of great things to say about it. So there's a lot of material to cover. You're going to be in Genesis 24, 25, 26 through basically 24 through 29. And lots of classic lessons from the scriptures are in this lesson. So let's get right to it.
All right. Do you want to talk about the attention activity?
Oh, sure. Why not? There are two. The first one might be your person might display a bowl or a bag of popcorn, fruit, something like that, and ask the class members, if you had to choose between a bowl of popcorn or the piece of fruit right now, or the promise of unlimited popcorn later, after you had planted and cultivated it and harvested it, which would you choose and why? I don't know, because I'm not that big on popcorn, so I'd probably just take it right then and there, to be perfectly honest. I don't care enough to harvest popcorn.
What about that Uchtdorf talk a long time ago about like the marshmallows? It's basically like the equivalent. Are you willing to hold out for something much better
and that's
than
obviously the lesson.
The initial? And
the parallel there is what we have with Isaac's experience in finding a wife, and this notion of hold out for what is best. There's also a second attention activity which makes very little sense. It just says, you ask the question, have you ever spent money or time to obtain something only to discover that it was not worth what you had spent on it? But it says this can happen to us spiritually. By making unrighteous choices, we may trade eternal blessings for things of far less value. I don't get the parallel there, to be perfectly honest. I don't know everything, but I do have a master's degree, and I feel like that is a false logic.
I don't understand it either.
Well, whatever. So if you have that one, folks, raise your hand and say, that makes no sense. Let's talk about something else. And then your teacher will have to move on because you will have embarrassed him or her.
Moving on.
Go ahead, Danielle. Take us to section 1.
Yeah. So Abraham emphasizes the importance of marriage in the covenant. So Abraham insists that Isaac marry a woman that is his kindred rather than from the Canaanites. So basically he's asking or insisting that he marry someone within the covenant, right?
Yeah, I would assume so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone of the faith.
Yeah. So what he does is he sends his servant, and this must be a very loyal servant to do this and someone he trusts dearly. And he sends him to his father's land, I believe, to find a woman for Isaac. And he has this servant go, and the servant doesn't really know how to find her, to be honest. But he's at the well, and he says this prayer to God, and he says that if there's a woman that comes to the well and offers to give him water as well as his camels, then that is the woman that should marry Isaac. And that if she comes back with him, then...
Interesting side note, we learned historians recently argued that camels did not actually exist in the Middle East at this time. But that could just be translation. It doesn't keep me up at night. I don't care if it was a camel or a tapir or a lemur or...
A lemur?
Yeah, lemurs. He rides his lemurs to Israel. They go bouncing around. It's wonderful.
Interesting.
Yeah, but what you were saying, I mean, yeah, I love this that he waits and waits, and he's been this faithful servant, and he wants something good. Of course, then Rebekah comes along, and she's quite the package, basically.
She's quite the looker, too.
Well, she's also 14.
She is?
That's pretty. Scriptural accounts assume that, for one thing, Isaac is about 37 at this point. So if you want the first example.
Well, they say they don't marry till he's 40 or something.
Or something like that. So if you want the first example, of course, of Mormon parents who are worried about their old son who's failed to get married, here's Isaac, who's made it well into his 30s.
Oh, wow.
And hasn't gotten hitched yet. But I believe by most accounts, it seems that at least when they meet, Rebekah's
she's a baby.
She's only about 14 or so.
Oh, wow.
But the most important thing is that
she's a strong baby because she's giving these camels lots and lots of water.
And she sticks it out. She makes sure everything's taken care of first.
That's impressive. So the servant tells Rebekah and wants to go to her house and speak with her family. He then explains to the family that he had said this prayer, and then Rebekah showed up and did exactly what he had asked the Lord to happen. And they asked Rebekah to go with, or he asked Rebekah to go with them. And she says yes. This child of 13, 14 says that she will go.
Well, the interesting thing though is she has a brother named Laban, interesting name. But they basically tell her because I think in the scriptures it says she comes back and basically says they talk about this. She basically said this old man who had a barren wife who finally had a child, and this old man's given this son everything.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing.
Yeah.
They kind of make Isaac sound amazing. He's got tons of land and money and animals.
He's basically like a duke.
She's not going to be hurting. He even gives her some jewelry at the well, she's set. I think
this is like Mr. Branson
her
marrying
family
Lady
thinks she's
Sybil.
set. Yeah,
for
exactly.
Sure.
So why not go?
But the beauty of it is that
she's 13. So
14, honey. How many times do I have to say 14 to you?
She just sounds like a baby.
Oh my goodness. I should never have told that.
No, you never should have told me that.
But I think the great thing that I love from this is, of course, it's the idea of eternal marriage and finding someone in the faith to carry on with the covenant, but also someone of quality. And I think, and it makes it hard, of course. We're looking for eternal companions, ones with whom we can carry on the covenant as well, in that sense. But it's not enough that somebody is just Mormon and temple worthy. You want someone who's also going the extra mile, like Rebekah, taking care of all the camels and the servant, little things like that really exemplify the true nature of being Christ-like and being service-oriented and really understanding the gospel.
Yeah, and also with that, how much faith she must have had to actually leave her family at such a young age.
It's huge. Well, that's hard. I mean, I don't know if we could wax too personal here or not on Honey, but, we live in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, we do.
And our families live in California.
Yes, they do.
And they miss us. And that's a sacrifice that I am well aware of.
And we miss them.
And we miss them. Of course, if you guys listen, but none of you do. We miss you. But the point of this is, I know that it's hard on our parents. I know especially on their daughter that in your case, of course, your parents miss you and want to have you around. And it demonstrates to me, it really does, that Danielle has had the faith and the spiritual confirmations that it's worth it to be away from that and experience that little bit of pain and longing and missing people for something that's bigger. So I really do see, that's the first thing I thought of when I read this account of Rebekah. I thought of that. Now, it's very true to life that we all, if we follow the Spirit, we do things, and there are things that might be hard and you might miss people, but she's doing something that she knows she should be doing that is better.
Yeah.
Which I know you feel the same way about me,
I came here for
Danielle.
you, Jeffrey.
I know you I gave up all happiness.
For this wonderfulness. That's good.
Wasn't there a quote you liked about this?
Well,
about being equally yoked from Paul and Spencer Kimball.
Well, it was something about why is it important to be married in the covenant.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a quote by, I don't know.
President Spencer W. Kimball.
Yeah, why don't you read that for me? Then?
Okay. Well, he said, Paul told the Corinthians, be ye not unequally yoked together. So we've all heard that one before. Perhaps Paul wanted them to see that religious differences are fundamental differences. And I actually like what President Kimball says here. He says, religious differences imply wider areas of conflict. Church loyalties and family loyalties clash. Children's lives are often frustrated. The non-member may be equally brilliant, well-trained, and attractive, and he or she may have the most pleasing personality, but without a common faith, trouble lies ahead for the marriage. I would say that's general counsel, but of course there's things to take on a case-by-case basis.
Well, yeah, and I think we need to emphasize the part that says there are exceptions. There are some exceptions.
There are exceptions. I mean, I've met we know people in our lives who are involved with non-members, and they've had bishops as much as say, no, just marry this person. This is going to be okay for now.
But I think it's also interesting, like religion, having differences in religion can cause huge conflicts. Like if you've ever seen those Match.com or eHarmony things, they try to match people up on religion and their backgrounds because that is one of the major conflicts.
It's fundamental, especially if one is active in a religion. When I was in high school, I never really had any Mormon girlfriends to offer my mission in general, and mostly it wasn't that big of an issue because I dated like lay Catholics, so it didn't really, they didn't care.
You weren't supposed to be seriously dating before.
And I wasn't, and that's a lesson that we're going to take to our children. When Rydian and Guy and all those wonderful young men.
These are not names of our children.
It's going to be terrific. But briefly, I went to prom with this one girl. And we dated a bit, but we eventually broke up specifically because she cited our religious differences. She was a fundamentalist evangelical, and obviously sometimes we are at theological odds with those brothers and sisters of ours from that community. And she was like, no, I can't date a Mormon because I can't date a Mormon. You guys are wrong, basically. And it was this wedge, and it was funny because we got along great, but it was this very clear thing like, well, obviously this would make no sense to even continue now, let alone in the long term.
Well, I think, pointless. When children actually come into play, that's when things get fuzzy.
Because then you start fighting over them.
Well, how do you want to raise them? Anyways, we don't need to talk about that part. The point is, being married in the covenant is wonderful. Yeah,
a lot of blessings come from it. And then, of course, what happens is they have children as time goes on, as one might assume. So you've got Abraham, has Isaac, and then Rebekah is eventually pregnant. And the funny thing is she notices a lot of discomfort while she's pregnant.
Well, yeah, because she has 2 babies inside.
But then she finds out she has 2. She doesn't realize she has 2, and then she finds out she's having 2, and that's quite the thing to discover.
That's a freaky moment.
And like it says, the children struggled together within her, as it says in Genesis chapter 25. But I love what they say in 25:23. The Lord reveals this to her. He says, "The Lord says unto her, 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels, and the one shall be stronger than the other, and the elder shall serve the younger," which is very interesting. And of course, when speaking of things like birthrights, that goes against what would have been the common logic of the time. And then we read in later in another chapter, of course, when they're born, Esau comes out first. They're twins, and I
want to go back to Rebekah for a second, though, because I think it's important to note how Rebekah was really I'm sure worried or wondering what was going on inside of her. And what she does is she prays to Heavenly Father, and that's how she received this revelation. That she turns to her Father in heaven. And then I like Elder Bruce R. McConkie says, "May I now take our common ancestor Rebekah as a pattern for what our daughters in the church today can do. When Rebekah was troubled and needed divine guidance, she herself took the matter up with the Lord, and he spoke to her in reply. The Lord gives revelation to women who pray to him in faith." And so many times in the Bible we hear about men who have received revelations, but I really like that it shows an example of a woman who receives revelation as well.
Yeah.
You can continue on. So these children are born.
So they're born, they live, and of course Esau has the birthright. And to go over what a birthright is, the Bible dictionary hits it really well, but to paraphrase some of this, under the patriarchal order, the right of an inheritance of the firstborn is a birthright. So this could be a land inheritance as well as an authority to preside over the family. It also says the firstborn of flocks and human families was considered as belonging to the Lord and was expected to be dedicated to him. So it could be either literal or by the redemption of money. So Esau was promised this, even though he was a twin. He was the first one to come out. So that means
he came out hairy and red.
He came out very hairy and wild.
Red in color.
And red. Mm-hmm. I always thought that meant blood.
Oh, I don't know.
But he's actually red.
I have no idea.
Just a hairy ginger.
I just know he's hairy like a goat.
Just a hairy ginger. We'll get there.
Yeah. Okay.
So the point is, they have this, and as time goes on, obviously, Rebekah knows that
she's had this revelation, so she knows what's going on.
She knows what's going on. She says, wait a minute, the older will be effectively subjugated to the younger. How is this going to go down as time goes on?
And it's interesting because the father actually, Isaac, he loved Esau, because Esau was like the hunter.
Yeah, Esau brought him venison.
And brought him,
basically
brought
says
him
that,
meat.
Basically says that Jacob didn't do anything. He was just a plain man who...
And Jacob was a plain man who his mother loved.
Jacob just hung around.
He
and
was
just
a mama's
whistled
boy.
and
Just kidding.
He was a mama's boy. But
Kidding.
then there came this point, of course, when we know that
he was starving.
Yeah, Esau's out in the field. He's starving. He wants some of Jacob's pottage being a stew. And Jacob just says, okay, give me your birthright. Esau just says, like, well, I'm about to starve to death, as he describes it, which really strikes me more as he's hangry. But he says, I'm starving to death. So he takes it and just gives up his birthright to Jacob. Boom. Kind of cunning on Jacob's part. But a lot of the Old Testament seems to be about lies and
it's interesting.
misleading and doing lots of things. But he gives his birthright to Jacob, and really over nothing, over a bowl of stew, basically.
Yeah.
The lesson, of course, would want you to think about this. What are the parallels in our day? I think it's very
go
very
back
clear.
to the fruit. Do you want the fruit now,
Yeah.
or do you want to wait and have lots and lots of fruit?
And Esau was, or the popcorn for me.
Popcorn.
But Esau wasn't patient enough for that, and so he gave it up very easily. And all too often, we are promised great blessings if we are faithful and patient, but we give them up because we want something immediately. We need instant gratification, especially in this day and age. I worry more and more as a society, we are very much into instant gratification, and we're losing our ability to be patient, both in spiritual and temporal things. And then what happens after this is the whole... The goat incident, as Danielle would. Why don't you just tell us about what happens even after that?
Okay.
Isaac's getting old, of course.
Isaac's getting old,
And he's blind.
and Rebekah hears him say to Esau that he wants Esau to go out and get him some venison, and then he wants to give him a blessing. And so Rebekah hears this, and she tells Jacob, and they get some meat from what is an equivalent to a barn
Whole
or something.
Foods, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. And bring it back, and she makes the meat. This is all while Esau is out hunting. And then Jacob is concerned because he says, I don't look like my brother, even though their father couldn't see. He knew that Esau had lots of hair.
Yes.
And
burly fella.
And Rebekah says, listen to me, just do what I tell you to do. So he does it, and she uses the skins of the goat.
They put it on like the nape of his neck.
Yeah, they put it on his neck. They put it on his arm. So when he goes in to give his father this meat, his father asks who it is, and he says that it's Esau. So he lies to his father, basically.
Yep.
And his father doesn't believe him. It kind of sounds like, because obviously he sounds like Jacob. So
yes,
he touches him, feels all the hair, which is really the goat hair. And then he basically he ends up giving Jacob the birthright, the blessing. The blessing. Sorry. So he gives him the blessing, and then Esau comes back, and everyone's all mad. Not everyone. Esau's
really mad.
Yeah.
And then so eventually Jacob flees.
Because Rebekah tells him, go to my brother's home and leave while Esau is getting over this, what you've done to him.
Yeah.
Really.
Well, I feel like you kind of cunningly took everything away from him. But Rebekah knew it had to be that way too.
Yeah.
It's interesting that Isaac is not the one who had the revelation, basically, about what would become of these sons and what was necessary. And that's the interesting thing. You mentioned revelation before to a woman, but this is like pivotal revelation for the posterity of Israel, in a sense. And it went to the wife, which is great. So while hanging out back with Laban, his uncle, he marries his first cousins, Leah and Rachel, and
he has to work for 7 years to get them.
He does a lot. And then, of course, it's Leah and Rachel, and then also later on Bilhah and Zilpah. Those will become the 4 wives of Jacob in order of marriage, and those are the ones who will give birth to the 12 sons who will become the 12 tribes of Israel, which is a big thing. And while I have a rapt audience, I just want to explain some birthright stuff because it doesn't really get explained in the next lesson. So a birthright... because later on we know that Reuben had the birthright from Leah, but then it went to Joseph after that because Reuben loses his birthright due to immorality. He just gives it up because he's naughty. But Joseph is the 11th born overall. He receives the birthright specifically because he's actually the firstborn of the next wife. So it doesn't just go first wife, first kid, then first wife, second kid. It goes first wife, first kid, then next wife, first kid. And so that's why Joseph received the birthright after that. I would tell you more, but we're actually completely running out of time. So,
sorry. I just want to say one more thing. Poor Rachel that had to deal with 11 children being born before her first. The end.
Well, remember, the Lord remembered Rachel.
The Lord did remember Rachel.
Folks, Danielle, do you know you can find us at thisweekinmormons.com?
And on Twitter.
Yeah. And on contact at thisweekinmormons.com, Facebook. So many wonderful places where you can be with us, folks. And we hope you'll subscribe to all of our podcasts. And please let us know how we're doing. Shoot us an email. Thanks for being here, honey. Nice to have you.
Nice to have you.
This has been, yeah, it is. This has been